Here we have the Nikon 200-400 F4 VR. This is the first version of the lens that was without nano coating. The VR2 version, this badge would be gold, and this would be the normal Nikon plate instead of this gold colored one. But the optical elements of the lens are all the same, so you're not going to see any big changes there. You can see the front element here, quite large. This lens doesn't come with a regular lens cap. It's a soft cap like this that just fits over top. Comes with a regular rear cap, like on all the other Nikon lenses. It has a removable 52mm filter thread. Here you can screw this in or out. This is the filter that comes with the lens, 52mm neutral Nikon lens element. The filter needs to be in place because it is part of the optical formula of the lens, so you can't just take that out thinking you're going to get better quality or something. Here we have the zoom mechanism, which goes from 200 to 400 as you move the lens to the right. We also have a focus distance scale and a manual focus ring. On the front of the lens you have this front element is actually kind of a screw-on filter. You can actually remove it if you want to, but it's generally not advised to do it. On the bottom we have a tripod foot. This is a replacement. This is not the stock foot. I replaced it with a Arca Swiss compatible with a lock to prevent it from sliding off. Originally the lens would ship with a strap. I got this lens used, so I do not have the strap. If you were carrying it around in an event, you might want to carry it that way with the foot removed. The tripod foot rotates extremely smoothly on this lens, unlike some of the more budget models. So those are kind of the key features of the lens that you'd first notice. The next thing is all the switches on here. One thing I actually didn't mention before is there's a series, at least on the on the original VR lens, of buttons up front, and those are used for whatever you tell it to. It's default set to AF on, so when you press them the camera will autofocus, but there's other options. As you can see here, there's a switch for what is called memory recall. When this is set to memory recall instead of AF on, then the first time what you do is you focus on something, and there's another switch here on the other side called set memory recall, which you can press, and that will set the memory, so that every time you press this button, as long as this is set to memory recall, it will go back to that focus distance. And that's good if you're, say, shooting a sporting event and you know the skater or the runner or whoever, they're always going to be coming through that spot. It gives you a starting position for your autofocus, so you don't have to hunt when they come around. Really helpful. The next position, the button will operate as autofocus lock. I generally leave it on AF on or memory recall. Down here you have a switch for focus confirmation, beep on or off. Why they built that into the lens when it's already on the camera, I don't know, but maybe it's louder or quieter. I'm not sure. I never used it. Also on the side here we have our usual manual or manual override autofocus position. So if you grab the focus ring while it's focusing automatically, it will switch. And then in manual, it will only manually focus. Next, we have a focus limiter, which allows you to focus the full range of the lens, which, if I recall correctly, is, yeah, it takes a while to get there. It's 2 meters, so less than 7 feet, to infinity. Or with this limiter switch, you can set it to not focus on anything closer than 6 meters, which is approximately 20 feet. So that's another function here. Then we move along and we have your usual VR settings, on or off, and normal or active. So that's all the features of the lens covered. In terms of optical performance, I think most of the reviews on the internet tell you quite correctly that this lens performs the best at close range. So it's really good for sports like rugby, soccer, hockey, those kinds of things. And it can be good for wildlife photography as well under certain conditions. But you do have to be reasonably close. It doesn't do terribly well towards infinity in terms of sharp focus at 400 millimeters. Lower on in the zoom range, it's not too bad, but at 400 millimeters, it's not going to compete with the 400 millimeter primes. There's just no doubt about that. But it does blow away all the consumer grade zooms from that era. The 200 to 500 millimeter Nikkor that's out there now, the E, is probably better at 400 and 500 millimeters, you know, that extended range. One of the reasons I personally opted for this lens is that it focuses faster than the 200 to 500, especially when the light starts to drop, and that was a big motivation.